welcome to the Cheapass review, the show for people too cheap to pay full price for their games, if at all. This week we're going to be looking at The Cleaner, a nice little freeware game by a guy called Robert Lupinek.
The first thing that you'll notice about the game when you boot it up is the high level of polish. The Cleaner has not one, but two start sequences. The first to explain the backstory behind the game, and the second to introduce the main character that you'll be playing as. There he is now. The graphics may look a little sketchy at first, but anyone who's played those golden oldies Another World or Flashback will recognise and appreciate their old school style. It's a little off in places, just look at the way this guy runs for instance, but what it lacks in technical excellence, it makes up for in sophistication. Just so you know, you play the eponymous Cleaner, a flying magician with a groovy black cape, whose job it is to travel through interdimensional gates and clean out the bad guys from worlds that are a bit too close to his own for comfort to prevent them from invading again.
Back on the subject of graphics for a second, they really are something special. They might look simple, but they're incredibly smooth in their motion, and very engaging. Let's take a closer look at the way that the main character's cloak moves, as an example of this.
As you can see, he points quite nicely at the targeting reticle to cast his spells, and when you move, the cloak flows behind him beautifully. Very nicely done. It's also possible to shoot and fly at the same time, obviously. And when you die, as I'm just about to demonstrate with the help of one of the game's most prolific villains, the cloak goes blasted off into the distance.
And speaking of the bad guys, there is a very good variety and a wide range of different tactics that need to be adopted when dealing with them. Let me show you a few examples.
The standard villain are these foot troopers, who come in machine gun and flamethrower varieties, as you can see. They tend to jump around a lot, making them difficult to target with slower spells, and are quite unpredictable in their motions at times. But they're very weak and not too tough to deal with. These turtle guys are similar to the foot troops, but don't jump as high or as often. However, they also come in a flying variety on a little anti-gravity skateboard. These static spores are very easy. They always fire in the same predictable pattern, so it's just a case of finding a spot they don't hit and staying there. Similarly, these turrets, though having more degree of freedom in movement, have a massive blind spot just below them, though as you can see it's not always easy to get into that. These flying arrows are particularly nasty. As soon as they get close, they lock on with a laser that never misses. They also tend to attack in groups. And then there's the cube. That's not a graphical error. Every time you hit the cube, the screen shakes.
And would any shoot 'em up be complete without massive uber bosses to defeat? The Cleaner, again, does not disappoint.
The boss characters range in size, from this giant amoeboid tentacular monstrosity, down to the more ordinary armour-suited flying trooper with a machine gun. In the best traditions of the shoot 'em up, there is often a special trick that will enable you to defeat the villains a lot more easily. However, in many cases, like this giant floating blob, it's simply a case of dodging the incoming fire, finding a weak point and hammering at it for a while. There are also some simple traps to navigate, although pretty much all of these are in the order of avoid something that's moving slowly up and down, like these spiked blocks, or else it's simply a case of timing your motion past something that comes sporadically on and off, like these geysers of lava.
Of course, no game is perfect, and the Cleaner is no exception, while it is still an excellent game. I would particularly take issue with some of the weapons at your disposal, the spells.
The Cleaner uses a simple experience point system that will be familiar to anyone who's ever played a computer role-playing game before. At any time you can pause the game and bring up this screen. Here you can spend those hard-earned experience points on upgrades for your character. Things like making him move faster, increasing the amount of damage he can take, or making more mana available for casting spells. You can also spend those experience points on purchasing new spells and improving the level of old ones to make them more deadly. The interesting thing about the Cleaner, however, is that if you run out of points, like this, it also allows you to remove levels from old skills and put them into new spells.
Allowing you to sell back old spells is an interesting touch, and it does allow you to experiment with spells before you actually spend the points and purchase them. However, because there is no limit to this, it does mean that at certain points in the game, if you find you are lacking a spell, you can simply sell off old ones until you can acquire it. This makes the acquisition of huge amounts of experience points for spending on spells less of an impetus, simply because you can just sell off things you no longer need.